Why your presence unsettles. Some people don't distance themselves from you because you're wrong. Rather, it's because your presence reveals what they're not ready to confront. When you enter a room, the energy shifts not due to admiration, but often due to discomfort. This isn't because you're loud, but because you're real. In a world rife with filters and facades, authenticity is rare, and for some, it can be overwhelming. You aren't intense or dramatic. You are powerful. You've cultivated an inner peace that remains unshaken, and when you project this energy, your aura speaks for itself, minimizing the need for many words. This is the Stoic approach: calm, unwavering, and firm in identity. The more you embody these qualities, the clearer it becomes who is truly prepared to meet you at your level. If this resonates even slightly, please consider subscribing. It's a simple gesture of appreciation. Now let's explore why your aura has such an impact, even when you remain silent. The weight of your presence. Most people enter a room hoping to be noticed. However, when you walk in, the room itself takes notice of you, often without you even trying. This isn't about being loud, flashy, or dressed a particular way. It's because there's a solidity and presence about you, as if you're not seeking approval but have already discovered it within yourself. This alone disrupts the usual dynamic. Conversations may pause upon your arrival, not out of fear, but because your presence carries a certain weight. You don't arrive with noise, you arrive with calm. In a world that constantly rewards performance and loudness, quiet strength can be unsettling. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." When you choose stillness over reactivity and presence, over performance, it confounds those who expect you to chase validation in the same way they do. There's profound strength in not feeling the need to fill every silence, and you've mastered this. Perhaps it wasn't always this way. Maybe you once over-explained, over-performed, or over-gave just to feel seen. But now you've done enough inner work to understand that true power lies not in seeking attention, but in mastering your inner world. Carl Jung observed, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." That awakening is what people sense when you enter. It's not that you're intimidating, it's that you are awake, and many are still slumbering. You've also ceased trying to alleviate the discomfort others feel around you. That's not your responsibility. When someone feels uneasy in your presence, it often signifies their unfamiliarity with someone so grounded, clear, and calm. Socrates reminded us that the unexamined life is not worth living. Your very presence encourages self-examination in others, which can be uncomfortable. Psychologically, people are drawn to familiarity, even if that familiarity is chaos or insecurity. When you arrive calm, confident, and unbothered, you create a stark contrast. This contrast invariably captures attention. Some will be drawn to it, others will retreat, but none will ignore it. Whether consciously or not, you've mastered emotional control. You don't allow the room to define you. Instead, you shape the room simply by being there. Aristotle believed that self-knowledge is the foundation of all wisdom. You've invested time in knowing yourself, clarifying your values, and discerning when to speak and when to remain silent. You've come to understand that not every battle is yours to fight, and not every stage is yours to occupy. This level of restraint signifies discipline and self-respect, qualities rare in today's world. People expect others to perform, overshare, and entertain, but you simply hold space. You listen, you observe, and you speak only when it's meaningful. This kind of energy doesn't just enter a room, it redefines it. You are living proof of Epictetus's teaching. No man is free who is not master of himself. You've embraced that freedom, letting go of the need to explain your presence or justify your silence. In doing so, you've become a mirror, reflecting back to others where they are not yet fully free. Not everyone can handle this, and that's perfectly fine. You weren't made to fit into every space. You were made to elevate the energy of those that resonate with your frequency. So, stay grounded. Let your silence communicate for you, because the more anchored you are in your true self, the less you'll need to prove anything to anyone. The unsettling truth of your honesty. Most people claim to desire honesty until they actually encounter it. It's ironic how truth, even gently spoken, can feel like a jolt to someone accustomed to hiding. You've likely observed this. You don't engage in pretense, and this unsettles those whose identities are built on it. You don't engage in small talk for the sake of it, nor do you smile merely to maintain peace. You speak authentically, and when something feels wrong, you articulate it, not out of rudeness, but out of care. You care enough to be truthful. This level of honesty is rare and often misunderstood. People might label you harsh, cold, or too much, but what they're truly expressing is that you made them feel something they weren't prepared to feel. Plato once stated, "No one is more hated than he who speaks the truth." When you convey truth, not just through words, but through your energy and presence, it compels others to confront aspects of themselves they've been avoiding. We live in a world where superficial conversation, fluff, filters, fakery is the norm. But you are not wired for that. You weren't designed to blend in, to simply nod and smile when your inner being screams that something isn't real. Carl Jung wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And that's precisely why your honesty can sting. It unintentionally illuminates what others have buried. Consider the friend who asks for your opinion, but recoils the moment you provide it. They sought validation, not truth. But you offered truth anyway, because flattery isn't in your nature. That moment of recoil is what sets you apart. You are not a flattering mirror. You are a clear, direct reflector. From a Stoic perspective, honesty is not merely a virtue, it's a responsibility. Epictetus advised, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because being honest, especially when it's uncomfortable, might make you unpopular temporarily, but it fosters trustworthiness in the long run. You don't need everyone to like you. You need the right people to respect you. There's a deeper reason why this resonates so strongly. When you speak the truth, you create friction, and friction begets growth. Not everyone is prepared for that. But those who are will remember your words long after the initial discomfort fades. They'll ponder your insights in solitude, perhaps returning to them later, realizing that you were the only one courageous, enough to be real with them. Aristotle called courage the first of human qualities because it makes all the others possible. This includes the courage to speak honestly, to be the lone voice in the room, unwilling to simply go along to get along. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. You've probably been called too honest more than once, but let's reframe that. What they're truly saying is, you're not afraid to confront what I'm afraid to face. And that, my friend, is power. That is clarity. That is leadership. The silent language of intuition. There's a type of knowing that transcends words. It comes from what people don't say. You feel it, you sense it, as if your mind is tuned to a different frequency. One most people don't even recognize exists. Someone might enter a room with a broad smile, uttering all the right things, laughing at the opportune moments, but beneath it all, you perceive the underlying tension, the tightness in their shoulders, the strained quality in their voice, the flicker in their eyes. Something is amiss and you know it. This isn't magic. It's emotional awareness, intuition honed by experience, observation, and even pain. Carl Jung stated, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What you've achieved is rendering the unconscious visible, not just within yourself, but in others. You've learned to perceive what lies beneath the surface. Socrates believed that wisdom originates from self-awareness, and when you cultivate that inner clarity, it begins to project outward. You don't just understand yourself, you start to understand others too, their patterns, their wounds, their energy. And this makes them feel seen, perhaps a little too seen. The truth is, most people are uncomfortable with being so easily perceived. It feels vulnerable, exposing. When you see beyond the act, the persona, the performance, it strips away the illusion they've meticulously maintained for years. This can be unsettling, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your presence makes it difficult for them to continue pretending. So, when that gut feeling surfaces, trust it. Don't rationalize it away or try to intellectualize it. It's your internal compass, sharpened through silence, solitude, and observation. The Stoics referred to this as prohairesis, the ability to choose your response based on your inner reasoning. Your intuition is an integral part of this. It's not a guess or a hunch, but your mind's quiet way of revealing the truth before your conscious brain fully comprehends it. The magnetic power of authenticity. Some people illuminate a room with noise. You illuminate it with presence. There's an undeniable pull to you, an energy that effortlessly draws people in. They want to be near it, to comprehend it, perhaps even to borrow a bit of it. But what they don't anticipate is the mirror that accompanies it. Because getting close to someone like you isn't merely comforting, it's confronting. You're not putting on a performance or adhering to a social script. You show up real, steady, and grounded. And when someone is unaccustomed to that kind of energy, it can subtly shake them, like standing near a fire. It's warm, yes, but it also makes you acutely aware of how cold your hands truly were. That's the essence of it. Your presence exposes people, not by judging them, but simply by being authentic in a world that rarely is. Plato said, "The measure of a man is what he does with power." And you? You don't wield your presence to manipulate or control, you simply are. But even that is powerful, because while others are still trying to figure themselves out, your certainty feels intense. It makes them question their masks, their narratives, their comfort zones. Carl Jung spoke of how your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. When people are around you, they catch a glimpse of that heart-level clarity, and for some, it's inspiring. For others, it's a little daunting, reminding them of everything they've been avoiding. So if people approach and then withdraw, don't take it personally. Your energy is simply posing a question they're not ready to answer, and that's perfectly fine. Not everyone is meant to stay, but those who do are the ones prepared to rise with you. The privilege of solitude. Some people avoid being alone as if it were a punishment. You treat it as a privilege. While others rush to fill their silence with noise, you've discovered power in the quiet. This doesn't mean you're antisocial or cold. It simply means you've uncovered something most people haven't. Your peace emanates from within, not from external sources. In a culture obsessed with constant connection, solitude has become almost suspect. If you're not posting, performing, or surrounded by people, others might begin to wonder what's wrong. But the truth is, nothing's wrong. In fact, everything might finally be right. Because when you're alone, you're not lonely, you're aligned. You can hear your thoughts, feel your emotions without distraction, and check in with yourself, free from filters or pressure. The Stoics recognized the power of solitude for this very reason. Seneca stated, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." It's in solitude that we begin to discern the difference. You strip away the projections, the noise, the drama. You get to ask, what's real here? What's mine to carry? What's just static from the world around me? Aristotle called contemplation the highest form of human activity. Why? Because when you're not preoccupied with reacting to the world, you get to shape how you respond to it. That space between stimulus and response is where your strength is forged. and where your clarity sharpens like a blade. Carl Jung observed that loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. You've likely experienced that ache, being in a room full of people yet still feeling disconnected. That's because you crave depth, not just presence, and solitude is where that depth begins. So don't let anyone make you feel odd for enjoying your own company. Don't diminish your silence to match someone else's chaos. Your alone time isn't empty, it's sacred. It's where you refine your thoughts, heal your wounds, and build the kind of inner peace that doesn't crumble when the world gets loud. Keep nurturing it, because in that stillness, you'll discover your sharpest clarity and your deepest power. The end of chasing, the beginning of attracting. There comes a point in life when you realize that chasing doesn't work. Not for people, not for love, not for recognition. And when that realization hits, something within you settles. You stop contorting yourself to fit into spaces you've outgrown. You stop explaining your worth to those who refuse to see it. You no longer knock on doors that were never meant to open for you. This isn't bitterness, it's alignment. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not distant, you're discerning. And that distinction is vital, because when you've done the inner work, faced your own shadows, and learned to hold space for yourself, your energy transforms. It stops reaching and starts attracting. What's meant for you begins to flow naturally, not because you forced it, but because you've matched its frequency. This is what the Stoics meant by self-sufficiency. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength, which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." That strength is why you no longer need to chase. When you know what you bring to the table, you're not afraid to dine alone. People might not understand it. They might mislabel your peace as pride, your distance as detachment. But the truth is, you've simply elevated your standards. You're not desperate for connection. You're intentional with it. You've learned that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay, and a fleeting good feeling doesn't always align with your growth. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. And making peace with yourself is a daily habit. That's what makes your energy so steady, so attractive, not the noise or the hustle, but the stillness that comes from knowing you don't have to pursue what is truly yours. So, when the temptation arises to chase, to prove, to explain, to convince, pause. If it's meant for you, it won't demand that you abandon yourself. Stay rooted, stay selective, because the more aligned your energy becomes, the more naturally the right people and opportunities will find you. The quiet certainty that shakes rooms. There's a profound calm that resonates louder than any noise. You don't even need to utter a word. Your energy communicates on its own. It carries a quiet certainty, and that kind of presence can unsettle people. Not because you're doing anything to them, but because you're revealing something within them. Your peace has substance. It reminds people of what they've buried under distraction, noise, and performance. And when they're near you, it becomes evident, sometimes painfully so, that they haven't discovered that peace within themselves. Your stillness highlights their restlessness. Your groundedness makes their avoidance obvious, and your authenticity makes the mask they've been wearing feel suffocating. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." So when people react strongly to your presence, pulling away, criticizing, or projecting, it's often not about you at all. It's about the parts of themselves they're not ready to confront. You're not judging them. You're simply holding up a mirror, and not everyone is prepared to look into it. Stoic wisdom advises against taking this personally. Epictetus taught, when someone irritates you, it is your own response that is to blame. You've embraced this, learning to remain centered even when misunderstood. Their triggers are their story, not yours. Socrates believed that self-awareness is the bedrock of wisdom, and by simply being who you are, real, calm, unshaken, you invite others to become more self-aware. That's a gift, even if it doesn't always feel like one, because not everyone is ready for growth, nor do they want to face what your energy quietly exposes. The unspoken power of boundaries. You don't walk around proclaiming your boundaries like a signpost. You don't need to. There's an inherent message in your demeanor, in your way of speaking, in your refusal to overextend yourself. This is someone who respects themselves. And when you respect yourself, others either rise to meet that respect or quietly withdraw. Either way, it works in your favor. You're not aggressive or cold. You're simply clear. And in a world filled with mixed signals and blurred lines, clarity can be intimidating. Most people are accustomed to bending, accommodating, and apologizing for having needs. But you've done enough inner work to discern where you end and where someone else begins. That's called self-possession, and it's magnetic. The Stoics would call this living in accordance with nature, meaning you've aligned your actions with your values. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's precisely what you're doing when you uphold your boundaries, not explaining them, but embodying them. Boundaries, after all, aren't about keeping people out. They're about keeping your energy clear. They are filters, not walls. They don't scream, "Stay away." They whisper, "If you're not aligned, you won't stay." And that filter protects your peace, ensuring your space isn't filled with chaos, disrespect, or emotional freeloaders. Carl Jung believed that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And part of that privilege involves discerning what you can and cannot accept. Your boundaries aren't selfish. They're self-honoring. They are the quiet architecture of a strong life. So keep them strong. Let them perform their function. You don't need to argue or over-explain. The people meant for you will sense them and respect them. The rest will naturally fall away. And that's not a loss. It's alignment in action. Leading by example. The quiet shift. There exists a quiet form of leadership that doesn't stem from shouting or showing off. It comes from simply being. You're not trying to convert anyone, nor are you pleading with people to change. You simply live in alignment with your values, and that alone can unsettle others. They observe your movements, your composure, how you handle pressure without losing your center, and it affects them. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you already have. Your growth is visible. Your discipline is palpable, and that level of consistency doesn't go unnoticed. Some will deeply admire it, recognizing in you who they aspire to become. Others might resist it, as it confronts them with the aspects of themselves they've neglected. But regardless, your energy creates a ripple effect. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. And that's what you've built. Habits rooted in discipline, focus, and self-awareness. You don't just talk about self-improvement. You actively pursue it, quietly, consistently, even and especially when no one is watching. Carl Jung noted, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." And you have walked through that fire. You've confronted hard truths, made difficult choices, and emerged with a self-respect that cannot be faked. That kind of presence needs no convincing. It speaks for itself. You're not striving to be a role model, yet you've become one, simply by being authentic, by doing the work, by not giving up on yourself when challenges arose. And here's the truth. The right people won't feel threatened by your growth. They'll feel inspired, they'll see your light and use it to ignite their own. So don't dim it, don't shrink, don't doubt your path just because others haven't found the courage to walk their own. You're not here to lead with noise. You're here to lead by example. Keep being yourself. Those meant to rise with you will. Space of stillness. Some people fill every moment with words because silence makes them anxious. But not you. You don't fear the quiet, you own it. There's a powerful quality in the way you embrace stillness. You don't rush to fill it, nor do you stumble for the next sentence. You allow it to breathe, and in doing so, you create space, not just around you, but within others. That space is where truth begins to resonate. When you're silent, it's not empty. It's charged. People feel it. They sense your full presence even without a single word. And that presence carries weight, not a heavy burden, but a genuine substance. The kind that suddenly makes others aware of how much noise they've used to distract themselves. Carl Jung once said, "Solitude is for me a fount of healing which makes my life worth living." Your silence functions similarly for yourself and for those around you. It's not just about retreating from the world, it's about stepping into something deeper. And sometimes the most profound connection you can offer someone is simply sitting with them in full awareness, no words needed. You've likely experienced that moment. Sitting with someone and feeling more understood in 5 minutes of silence than in hours of conversation. That's the kind of space you provide. Your calm doesn't just soothe, it reflects. It holds up a mirror, and that's why people feel so much in your silence. It's not about withdrawal, it's about presence. The Stoics revered stillness, believing that calm was a form of strength, a discipline in itself. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And you have proven yourself not by proclaiming your story, but by sitting with it, by letting your stillness speak volumes. Beyond explanation, embodied peace. There was a time when you went to great lengths to explain yourself. You yearned for people to understand, to grasp your true self, your intentions, your depth. And when they didn't, it stung. So, you tried harder, over-explained, defended your character, even watered yourself down to be more palatable, more accepted, but not anymore. Now, you've stepped into something deeper. You've realized that your energy communicates everything you need it to. You don't have to convince anyone of who you are when you're already living it. That kind of calm, quiet, rooted, unwavering presence is rare, and it can unsettle people. Not because you're trying to, but because most are still trapped in the exhausting cycle of seeking validation. Socrates advised, to find yourself, think for yourself. That's precisely what you've done. You've ceased outsourcing your worth. You've stopped explaining every boundary, every decision, every feeling just to gain someone else's approval. You know who you are, and you trust that those who need to feel that energy will, no pitch required. Carl Jung perfectly articulated this. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You've earned that privilege through pain, patience, and persistence. And now that you've become that version of yourself, the one who doesn't chase, doesn't justify, doesn't shrink, you move differently. Your confidence is no longer loud, it's embodied. That's why people sense it before you even utter a word. The Stoics taught indifference to praise or blame when living with integrity. Epictetus reminded us, if you want to improve, be content. To be thought foolish and stupid. Because truth doesn't always garner applause. Sometimes it evokes silence, distance, or criticism. And you've learned to be okay with that. So, let others talk. Let them misunderstand. You don't need to explain. Your peace to those still at war with themselves. You don't need to prove anything. You live it, and that alone speaks louder than words ever could. The clarity that confronts insecurity. Insecurity has a peculiar way of distorting truth. When someone hasn't truly figured themselves out, when they're still vacillating between masks and mirrors, your confidence doesn't comfort them. It confronts them. You enter with clarity, calm, and self-respect. and suddenly they feel exposed. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your presence illuminates everything they haven't resolved within themselves. That's why they might label you arrogant, when in reality you're simply sure of who you are. You're not striving to be superior to anyone, you're just striving to be nothing other than yourself. That level of self-possession is rare, and to someone who has never experienced it, it can feel threatening. Carl Jung referred to this as projection, the unconscious act of displacing our own unacknowledged feelings onto someone else. He said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. So, when someone criticizes or projects onto you without genuine cause, chances are they're grappling with their own inner turmoil. You're merely the surface their issues are bouncing off. You've likely encountered this. The person who claims you think you're better than everyone, even when you've never implied it, or the one who accuses you of being distant when you're simply setting boundaries. These are not reflections of your character, they are reflections of theirs. And once you recognize that, you stop internalizing what was never yours to bear in the first place. The Stoics would encourage you to remain rooted in your own reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength is precisely what you've cultivated, the ability to remain centered even when others attempt to pull you into their chaos. Don't shrink. Don't doubt your truth because someone else hasn't found theirs. Let them have their story. Let them navigate their projections. Just don't absorb them. That's not your responsibility. Your task is to continue walking in your peace, your purpose, and your presence, because what is real needs no defending and what is projected is not yours to carry. Liberation, the true measure of self. This moment right here marks the shift. It's when you stop asking, "Am I too much?" and start saying, "Maybe they were just too little." It's when you cease contorting yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for your truth. You no longer censor your tone, dilute your opinions, or diminish your spirit to avoid making others uncomfortable. That's not confidence, it's liberation. You've realized your light isn't meant to be dimmed simply because some people haven't adjusted their eyes to its brightness. And that's perfectly fine. Not everyone is meant to walk with you. Some are only equipped for superficial connections. They desire ease, not depth. Validation, not honesty. And your energy, rooted, real, unapologetic, challenges that. This doesn't make you wrong, it makes you rare. Socrates once said, "To be is to do." And now, you simply do. No disclaimers, no softening of edges for the sake of maintaining peace, because any peace that demands self-abandonment isn't peace. It's quiet suffering. Carl Jung also addressed this, saying, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." You've achieved that. You've confronted your strengths, your shadows, your scars, and you've embraced all of it fully. That kind of wholeness isn't just powerful, it's disruptive, especially to those still trying to piece themselves together through others' approval. Stoics would say you've begun living in accordance with nature, your nature. Epictetus reminded us, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." And that's precisely what you're doing. You've stopped performing and started embodying. You've outgrown the need to be liked by everyone because you've grown into the strength of being respected by the right ones. Let them misunderstand, mislabel, or even disappear. That's not your loss. That's space clearing. Space for alignment. Space for elevation. Because your energy is no longer up for negotiation. It is sacred. And those meant for you won't just accept it. They'll rise to meet it. You were never too much. You were just too real for a world still learning to face itself. So keep walking in your truth. Keep honoring your energy. And never dim your light to soothe someone else's shadow.